While most of the people on my panel were off on spring break in California or Florida, I was having a great time in my basement double screening both of the March Madness games that were happening at the same time. It's honestly a really nice setup, although my heart did break a little bit when Arizona lost. So I kind of had them winning in one of my brackets. But I do still have UCLA left, so I guess that's good. So we'll definitely get into March Madness, but also a lot of Philly sports news that happened the last 2 weeks here on this episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. Welcome back to Sports Talk Philadelphia. As always, I'm your host, Aiden Tuksinski, and I'm joined again for the first time in 2 weeks by a completely full panel. Starting on my left is Libby. Libby, how was your break?
It was very good, very warm. I was in Florida, so that was nice, but happy to be back.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. Shane, we have you. Shane, how was your break?
Good. Didn't really do anything, just stayed at home, but it was relaxing.
Sometimes staycations are definitely the best breaks. And Mike, we have you who was in California. How was that?
Yep, very good. Good weather. Ready for talk some sports. Best time of the year for sports.
Yeah, it's good to have everyone back, and we will be talking about a team that was actually playing in Florida. It is the Phillies, who have had a pretty good spring. A lot of notable things have happened. Their record right now is 13-12-1. Which, again, records don't really mean a lot in spring training, but it is good to see that they are over 500. They've scored 10 or more runs in 4 of those wins, and there's only 5 spring training games left until opening day, which just seems so quickly that the Phillies went from losing the World Series and having a very short offseason to now we're talking about regular season happening. Libby, I'm going to start with you. How exciting is it that opening day is almost upon us?
It doesn't even feel real. It's so exciting. And, you know, they're playing really well right now. I think they should have a lot of confidence going into this regular season. Coming back to Philly, I think the fans are just going to be electric and excited, and I can't wait for the start of the season.
Yeah, Shane, there's no 2 better words in the English language than opening day, is there?
No, there's not. I mean, it's just great to just be at home and be able to watch like when baseball starts. I usually just sit on my couch and I'll watch like every game that's possible on TV until the Phillies come on, because obviously they won't play until later on in the day. But yeah, opening day is probably like the best thing in sports in baseball.
Yeah, typically the 1 o'clock starts are Yankees games, so I'll watch like the first 3 innings, but it's definitely very exciting to finally watch Phillies baseball in particular, but baseball in whole. It will be very cool to see that, especially after a great World Baseball Classic, which we will get into a bit. But when we break down some of the guys that have really stuck out this spring training, there's some new names on this list, and one guy that has sort of been solid throughout all of spring training. So Jake Cave has had a great spring training. He's batting at a .442 pace with 3 home runs and 12 RBIs. Mundo Sosa's still up there. His batting average isn't over 500 anymore, but it's still very, very good. .457 batting average, 4 home runs, and 8 RBIs. And then Cody Clemens, who the Phillies brought in with the trade with Gregory Soto as a backup, has had a good spring as well. He's batting over 300 at .333, 3 home runs and 10 RBIs. So, Shane, when you see all these guys, I mean, we talked about Sosa before, but when you see Cave and Clemens playing this well, it's really good to know that the Phillies not just have depth in one player, but now multiple players in multiple positions.
Yeah, and it's very important right now because they're kind of having all these injuries pile up now with the team. So it's good to have these type of players on the bench. Like last year, they didn't have much. I mean, they had Dalton Guthrie, they had Nick Maton, and Matt Vierling, who did pretty well. But I think this bench is probably better this year, and just for some of these players to be also probably play a couple games as a DH too. So it definitely helps the Phillies this year.
Yeah, it went from what was nicknamed the daycare squad, which was the backups, the young backups last year for the Phillies, to now having guys that have MLB experience, even if it's just a little bit. And now you sort of can work around a lot. And we will get into one key injury that happened earlier in the day. But Mike, when you look at this, it is a good feeling that Rob Thompson now has all these different pieces to work with.
It's so important to have these veterans because we saw last year in the World Series, you know, like Dalton Guthrie was thrown in the World Series and he barely had any experience. So having guys who's been there, and now that the Phillies have been there, they do have guys that can do that. And it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of shape up the bench now with obviously the Hoskins injury today. What kind of happens if Hall moves to DH or kind of where Sosa goes. It's going to be interesting to see. I think another guy too is Kingery, and see if he maybe could, he's had a decent spring, maybe he can kind of redeem himself in the majors.
Yeah, Mundo Sosa we talked about last week. He's still playing very, very well, and they have tried him a little bit in center field. It didn't go all that great, but Shane, the fact that he's still out there getting some reps, it does make you feel a little bit more confident that they might give him a chance in center field if they have to do that.
Yeah, no, and I mean, Emmanuel Sosa he's a good defender. Even though obviously majority of his games, if not all of them, have been in the infield. But I mean, center field is a difficult position to play, especially if you're a majority infielder. But and this is definitely important now because of the injuries, because of the injury to Hoskins, because now he's probably going to get a lot of playing time, maybe at third base, if anything. So it's very important that he kind of is getting this playing time in center field right now.
Yeah, so the injuries list, it has started to pile up. At the beginning of the week, it didn't look all that bad. Garrett Stubbs has a right knee sprain. He is expected to be ready for opening day. Some positive injury news, actually, in Bryce Harper. They were thinking they would be put on the 60-day DL. That didn't happen, which means he could possibly be back by May 29th. And then Ranger Suarez hurt his forearm. He had to drop out of the World Baseball Classic, but he is expected to be ready for opening week with a pitch limit. Those were the key injuries. And then today, Rhys Hoskins had a major non-contact leg injury. It looks like it's either Achilles or ACL, although no news has come out yet. They did say that he was walking in the locker room, which is good, but there has been cases where guys have walked after injuries like that and then are out for the rest of the season. So, Libby, I'm going to start with you first. Obviously, the Harper injury news is very, very positive, but this injury news to Hoskins is not good at all.
It is heartbreaking, yeah. I mean, now the Phillies have to scramble. I mean, they're a week away from opening day, and you have this, and of course, we don't have too much information yet, so as that comes out, things will change. But, yeah, you got to scramble. Who are you going to put in his position? Who can you move around? It's a big puzzle piece now, and this close to opening day is really tough. So I trust the Phillies. You know, they have depth now, so it's way better this year than it would have been last year to try to scramble and figure something out. But, you know, they have some work to do, and good that the Harper injury is coming out with the news that it has, and hopefully he gets back quicker because he is the spark for this team. So we'll see. It'll be an interesting few weeks.
Yeah, with the Harper injury, it ties into this a lot because the expectation was Derek Hall was going to be the DH while Harper was out. Now it seems like he's probably going to be the starting first baseman, so the Phillies will have to find a new DH. Maybe it's Cave, maybe it's Sissel. We really don't know. There is a lot the Phillies can do with this, but, Mike, they've got to do it in a way that's not destructive to other players because you don't want to throw guys off the rhythm and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, Hall having, shown promise last year gives the Phillies so many options. I mean, you could move Bohm over to first and have Sosa / Kingery or whoever you think will play well there at third, have Bohm play first and Hall DH or, kind of rotate, have Hall play first. But they have options. I mean, there's definitely things that they can do. And it's just heartbreaking for Rhys. This is probably going to be – it was most likely his last year is going to be a contract year. So it's heartbreaking to see, and hopefully it's nothing serious, but it did not look too great.
Yeah, one of the things that has been mentioned, like you sort of alluded to, is that you could move Bohm somewhere else. It seems like they want him to be that third baseman, but Sosa is a good defender that you could move there, and the way he's been hitting has also been a positive. But, Shane, it's sort of weird that moving Bohm could be also hurt all the success he's had at third base now.
Yeah, it could, because as we seen last season, that he kind of picked up his defense at third base after that comment that he made back in April with the 3-error game against the Mets. But also, it could be difficult because first base is a lot of footwork at first base, and with Bohm, I mean, some of the problems that he had at third base was his footwork, and that could obviously cause a lot of errors for him. So, in my opinion, it's not a good idea for them to move him over at third base, especially because they do have Derek Hall, but they also have JT Realmuto, who has played first base a couple of times in his career. So they could obviously with Garrett Stubbs have Garrett Stubbs be the catcher, move JT over to first for a couple of games, which they did that last year as well. So.
Yeah, and so unfortunately this injury news is pretty bad, but there is some very positive news in the signing the Phillies had in Trey Turner, who balled out in the World Baseball Classic. He batted close to 400. He led the World Baseball Classic in home runs and actually had the record for home runs, 11 RBIs. Taijuan Walker had 8 strikeouts in his one appearance. And the Phillies also had some younger guys step up too, and Noah Skiro, who had a 0 ERA in 5 innings. So, Shane, I'm going to go back to you. This Trey Turner news is extremely positive, especially with all the injuries that now the Phillies have had start to pile up.
Oh, it is. And what a player Trey Turner is. I mean, what you just said, his stats in World Baseball Classic, and earlier today he had another home run in spring training and a 2-run shot. So it's great that we're seeing this power for him, because last season he did hit about 20 home runs, 22 home runs or so. So it's great that we're kind of seeing this power, because you're losing that power with Hoskins. You're losing about 30 plus home runs and 80-plus RBIs. But obviously with Trey Turner and with what he's done in the World Baseball Classic, it will carry over into the regular season because he's just such a great player.
Yeah, Mike Trout was considered to be sort of the Captain America for the U.S. team, but that clearly turned into Trey Turner with the way that everything shook out. We are now going to jump to the Sixers, who they've been on a hot streak recently. They've won 9 out of their last 10. They've scored 100 points in every game in March, which is something that, although it is a very high-scoring NBA in today's modern era, still scoring 100 points throughout an entire month this late into March is just fantastic for them. And then when you look at it, they also have a 10-2 record this month. So they did win last night too, but when you look at that, that's just amazing, the winning streak that they've gone on. And Mike, this late in the season, it is very good to see them playing this well.
Kind of what we expected from the start of the season, and Joel Embiid is really playing, like a man on a mission, and it's good to see. And the only thing we always say is just hope that he can stay healthy as the playoffs roll around. And it's good to see Harden. I think it was Monday, that Bulls game. Not this one, but the game on Monday in Philly, Harden just did not play well, and he cannot play like that if they want to go anywhere in the playoffs. And it was a little concerning, and that's kind of been his problem throughout his career, but I'm hoping that he can kind of get past that, and, Embiid is just playing on a whole different level right now.
Yeah, so when you look at the 2 games against the Bulls back-to-back, it's certainly sort of telling what happened each game. The one that went into overtime, the bench played awful, Harden didn't play well. And this one, Harden didn't play. The bench really stepped up, and pretty much every starter contributed, including P.J. Tucker, who only had 5, but a great defensive effort. So, Libby, it sort of shows that the team needs to play complete basketball in order to win games.
Yeah, I mean, a few weeks ago I said that this team felt the same as it did last year, competitive but not good enough to go anywhere. The team that we've had the past 10 games is a completely different team because the bench is contributing. You have to have those guys scoring points. If Harden doesn't play well, who's going to back him up? You know Embiid's going to have 30, 40 points a game because he's, like Mike said, on another level. He's your franchise and he's proving it. Maxi's starting, that clicked for them. And there's just something different. There's something in the water with this team that I think they could really go far.
Yeah, it certainly does feel like a different team. They've gotten really hot, and they've been playing very good caliber teams too. So it's not like they're just beating up on some of the worst teams in the East. But when you look at Joel Embiid, he is playing at a rate that we have not seen from pretty much anyone at the center position. He's averaging 33.2 points per game, which is still the highest in the NBA. He's scored over 30 points in 10 out of the last 11 games. The only one was last night when he was taken out after the first half. And he's currently has scored 36 or more in 7 of those 11 games, which is just amazing. So, Libby, Mike mentioned the fact that Embiid needs to stay healthy. Last night he was taken out after the first half. But it doesn't seem like it's going to hinder him too much, but health is going to be a big talking point this late in the season.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's been a problem in the past few years. You have an injury to him, and that's kind of it. I don't want to hope that, but when you have a guy that's scoring 30 to 35 points a game, if you lose him, you're going to be in trouble. So the Sixers are doing the right thing if they hold him back a little bit now, allow him to still play, but yeah, take him out of the first half and keep him healthy. He has to be healthy for the postseason, and if he is, they're going to be okay.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the Sixers' success will rely on how healthy Embiid is and how well he plays because, Mike, at this point, he should be the front runner for NBA MVP.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad that the national narrative is kind of shifting a little bit from, Jokic to now people are starting to give Embiid his flowers, and it's well-deserved. And listen, Jokic is a great player, he almost averages a triple-double, but Embiid averages almost 10 more points than him, and he's had his number when they go against each other, and they play each other in a couple games. I think that will be really telling of, what happens and, kind of how the voters see the MVP race. So that's going to be important in the next couple games, how that matchup goes.
Yeah, that one comeback that the Sixers had against Nuggets will definitely be something that will be in voters' minds when they're voting between the two players. And it might also come down to the record the two teams have. Right now, the Sixers are one of the top teams in a highly competitive Eastern Conference. They're only a half a game behind the Celtics. They're only 3 games behind the Bucks. And when you look at just the way that they've played, they have a 49-23 record, which is also just amazing. It's a little bit better than the Nuggets as well, who've played in a lesser Western Conference. So, Libby, when you look at this, there is a chance that the Sixers can still pass the Bucks for that first seed.
Yeah, there absolutely is. And the way that they're playing right now, it's totally plausible. You've got a lot of momentum, so they need to be focused on keeping their guys healthy, but getting conference wins. They have to figure out how to beat the Celtics, and I will say it again and again and again, because that's the team that's given them the most trouble, and if they can get past that, I think they're good to go.
Yeah, I mean, the Celtics have been the biggest block, but the Bucks are no team to scoff at either. So, Mike, when it comes down to playing one of those two, because that's what it feels like you're going to play at some point in the playoffs, who would you rather face?
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy because I feel like we talked about that the 1 seed was kind of out of the question at some point, but now, they're right there, and I think the Bucks still have it, but we'll see how that goes. But I think if the Sixers get the Celtics home in a 2-3 matchup and they're the 2 seed and they have the home court, I think they could win. But just like Libby said, the Celtics have had our number, especially in the playoffs, and it's time to get past that hump. And I think getting that home court will be huge if they do play the Celtics.
Yeah, as someone who has grown up in this area my entire life, I would much rather beat the Celtics than the Bucks. I just don't like the Celtics. I really need the Sixers to get revenge on them for a couple of times that they've knocked us out of the playoffs. But I guess we'll see what happens in April, because there's still at least half a month left of the season and the first round of the playoff as well. So it'll be interesting to see how the Sixers finish, and if they can get that 1 seed, we will definitely keep you in tune with that. We're now going to jump to a team that we've not talked about since they had a very disappointing loss in the Super Bowl with the Eagles, but there has been a lot that has happened since March 15th when free agency officially opened. The Eagles have lost a lot of pieces, starting with C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who signed a 1-year, $8 million contract with the Lions. They've also lost Miles Sanders, Javon Hargrave, 2 massive contracts that they got for their positions. T.J. Edwards signed a 3-year deal with the Bears, and they also lost Kazir White to a 2-year, $11 million contract with the Cardinals, who's now coached by Eagles' old defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon. So it's interesting how he decided to go with him. But, Mike, when you look at all of these losses, there's a lot that sticks out, but which one sticks out to you the most?
Yeah, when we lost that Super Bowl Sunday, we knew that this defense, it was not going to be the same. We knew we were going to lose people, and I'm kind of surprised about how it kind of turned out. I really did not think Bradbury was going to be here still. I thought he was going to be the one gone and CJ was going to stay, but I think that I'm glad that we did keep Bradbury and Slay, especially kind of after how Gardner-Johnson's kind of reacted to this whole offseason situation. But, you bring the guys back that you needed to. I think you still have 2 all-pro corners. I think that's more important than a safety. And you can look into the draft, and there's a couple guys that I like. But I think signing those guys, those cornerbacks back, bringing back Slay is so important for this defense.
Yeah, running back is also a position the Eagles are very deep at, but losing a Pro Bowl running back in Miles Sanders, it's never really that easy for a lot of fans to get over, even though financially it does make a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, it was a tough one to swallow. I loved the way that Miles Sanders played last year. I think he really hit his stride and gave the Eagles a lot of their success. You have to have a run game, and he led that, and it was so much fun to watch. So I thought they would keep him, and it was disappointing to see him go, but there's a ton of running backs in the football world. They can find somebody to replace him, and I think going forward, he's going to have a really successful career wherever he ends up in the future.
Yeah, the Eagles were actually very quick to replace him by signing Rashad Penny from the Seahawks for a small one-year contract. They also did a lot of other re-signings. James Bradbury they brought back. They also brought back Darius Slay, Brandon Graham, and a very interesting one was Marcus Mariota, who the Eagles were considering trading up to draft 7 years ago. They have officially brought him back for a 1-year contract that is worth up to $8 million. Mike, when you hear the name Marcus Mariota, it sticks out because obviously Chip Kelly was his coach in college. He really, really wanted him. And it's pretty crazy that we've now, this late in his career, have gotten him back for a contract like this.
Yeah, it seems like full circle. Like in 8th grade, just being like, oh, Marcus Mariota is going to be an Eagle. It's crazy to think now he's an Eagle. Obviously, his career didn't pan out to be that way, but it's a good signing. Obviously, I don't know if it's an upgrade over Minshew, but, it's a backup quarterback. I do like him. He's seen that he can come in here and fill in, when needed to. So I do like the signing.
Is something the Eagles have really talked about a lot is getting a backup quarterback, especially with everything that happened with Nick Foles. And, Libby, when you look at a guy like Mariota, who played pretty well last year with Atlanta, nothing special, but you don't need your backup to be special. You just need him to do the job until your starter can come back.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great signing for them. Jalen Hurts is your guy, but if something were to happen, I trust Mariota to kind of fill in the gaps until he's able to come back, and you have to have a backup. And I think this was a really great signing for them to make them feel comfortable going into the season if Jalen Hurts had to miss a couple games.
Yeah, and when you look at also what the Eagles have, they haven't just have a re-signing, but their draft capital is also pretty high. They have 2 picks in the first round. They also have a pick in the second and third round, and then nothing until the 7th. So, Mike, when you look at this, they have no picks in the 4th, 5th, or 6th round. Do you see them trading one of these rounds in the first pick to then trade back to get other picks?
It depends. I think they'll keep 10 unless they really have a guy that they think they could get later and get an extra pick from. But I think they're going to keep, they're going to use those picks. They just might trade back a couple picks in the first round, but I think they will definitely utilize them. And it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think I'm hearing a lot about Bijan Robinson maybe, but I do like Brian Branch, the safety from Alabama. So it'll be interesting to see. But I could see how he definitely, we've seen it before, trading down and getting an extra pick.
There's certainly a lot of needs for the Eagles. Robinson's name's been tossed out a lot, although signing Penny means you now have 3 running backs in your roster because they also brought back Boston Scott. You need another linebacker because you've lost 2. You might need another cornerback, another safety. There seems like there is a lot more holes right now on the Eagles roster than we sort of had thought before free agency started.
Yeah, I mean, when you get to a Super Bowl, you're going to lose guys, and they lost a decent amount of guys. So now you have a good amount of picks to fill in the gaps, and it's making smart decisions with those picks to get what you need. And I'm excited to watch the draft and see who they end up with. And I trust the franchise to get the guys that they need to have a successful season, because you still have a lot of key players in place. Because it's easy to look at what you lost, but you gained a lot back too.
Yeah, and Mike, you mentioned Robinson. So do you think it makes sense for the Eagles to go after him now that they have a pretty stacked running back roster?
Not at 10, and I'm just kind of getting annoyed hearing everybody saying that we should pick him at 10 because, I think if he's there at 30, which I don't think he will, I think that will be good. But I think at 10, and Howie's known, I don't think they're going to do it because Howie's not known for valuing, running backs that high. So if he's there at 30, I think I would do it, but I would not pull the trigger at 10.
Yeah, running backs usually are not drafted in the first round. It's not something that's really valued. So doing it that high when you have so many other needs, it would be a questionable decision, although with Robinson's athleticism, it could be seen why some people would want the Eagles to draft him at the 10th overall pick. We're now going to go into Fast Five. We're going to go back to Mike with Talking Baseball with Mike.
So I'll talk about a little about the World Baseball Classic. So baseball, it's kind of been under fire the past few years, kind of losing its steam. But I think this kind of really helped to show that baseball is, still one of the most popular sports in America, and not even just in America, and just the whole world. You saw Japan, win it against Team USA and just the other teams, Dominican Republic, Cuba, like all of them. It's just so fun to watch, and I think it's really good for baseball that this was successful, and I think it's kind of starting, to get the popularity back a little bit. It's
been pretty crazy to see all the numbers of the people around the world watching sport. Most of the Japanese population watched the final. Something like 61% of Puerto Rico's population watched them play the Dominican Republic. So the numbers across the world are sky high for the World Baseball Classic, which is very good news for baseball, and hopefully those numbers will stay up once the MLB season starts in a week. We're now going to go to Shane, who for a good 2 or 3 weeks was yelling about that the Flyers needed to fire Chuck Fletcher, needed to fire him. And then the day after one of our episodes, he is finally fired. We will get more into it next week when we talk about the Flyers. But Shane, what is your early reaction to this firing?
This makes me so happy. This is, for once, what feels like they did something right for once since I would say they won the Cup in 1975. It's just great to see that they took a step in the right direction. It's not the only move they have to make, but it's the right move for right now.
Yeah, I would also like to add that maybe it was the fact that I made a little quip about him the day before he got fired in the opening. Maybe that's what got them fired. Maybe the Flyers do actually watch the show. No one has commented yet, so I doubt that was it, but it is good to finally see the Flyers making some sort of decision. We are now going to go back to Mike, I believe. Yes, we are. We're going to talk about the NBA. So we talked about in the East, it's very competitive. The West is much less competitive. But who do you have coming out of the West?
Yeah, I mean, the one team that I would say right now is the Nuggets, but I think a finals between them and the Sixers would just be, not even as a Sixers fan, would be so fun to watch just for basketball fans. I mean, Jokic versus Embiid, but there's teams that are lower right now in the West that could make a run. I think the Lakers are finally kind of starting to hit a little bit. I know LeBron's not back yet, but maybe there's some hope for them. And teams like the Grizzlies, there's the West, there's so many teams stacked up right there, but I think probably my pick would be the Nuggets.
Yeah, the Nuggets, it's the obvious pick. They're the top seed. They've been better than everyone else. I'm going with the Kings. They're the 3rd seed right now, but they've been playing hot basketball. They're young. They haven't had a lot of playoff experience, but I think that could actually come to help them a lot because they don't have a playoff experience. They don't know what the expectation is. And I think when you go in with a mentality like that, like we've seen with March Madness, which we'll get into a bit, that does help a lot of teams because you don't know really that you're not supposed to win. So sometimes it just makes you want to win or sort of not have that pressure on you to lose. So we're now going to go back to the NFL with Libby. There's been a lot of rumors about Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets. Nothing official has happened yet, but it seems pretty set in stone. What is your early reactions to all these rumors, I guess?
Oh, Aaron Rodgers. He has been a drama starter, and he created an ego over the past few years. It's been a little bit tough to watch him be a Packer, but right now the Packers have control of him. He has made it very clear he wants to play for New York and the Jets have made it clear that they want him, but they're not coughing up what we need them to cough up. And so the Packers are not going to give him away for nothing. So it's taking a long time, and the Jets are practically promising their fans, hey, we got Aaron, but you don't. So I think the Packers are kind of in the driver's seat now, and they're going to get the first-round pick that they want and some if he's going to go. Yeah,
there's also that wish list that Aaron Rodgers had, which could go in a little bit to add factors to the fact that he hasn't been to the Jets yet. But again, it does seem pretty sensible, but we'll see if it actually happens. We're going to wrap up with March Madness. So far, my bracket this year has actually not been terrible. I have UCLA and Bama in the final. As of right now, that could still happen. I've only lost one Final Four team. In my one bracket, my other, I lost Arizona really early on, so I haven't really paid any attention to that. But Mike, you're the only other person here that's filled out a bracket. How's yours doing?
Yeah, I'm in a couple. I had Marquette in one, which did not work out, but I have Texas in the other, and I think that could. But I think I'm leaning towards UConn right now. I think they might be my favorite, but it's been fun to watch, and the games tonight are going to be fun to watch as well.
Yeah, I also filled out a women's one for the first time and then lost Indiana, who was the 1 seed in theirs, and they're done now. But I had South Carolina winning the whole thing, and that seems like a surefire bet. They're undefeated right now. Hopefully I'm not jinxing it. I also have UConn going back to the Final Four, and that seems like it's pretty much set to happen. We'll see if that actually happens. We'll talk about all this next week because right now we have finished this episode. As always, make sure to check us out on social media, on Instagram and Twitter at SportsTalk LTV. We are posting a lot more content there. We'll be definitely posting about Embiid's MVP watch, as that seems like it could happen, but we're not 100% sure yet. But as always, make sure to tune back next week with the latest news in Philadelphia sports.